Imagine a world where no simply does not exist. A world of bespoke luxury where a single phone call can get a private jet or an exclusive reservation or a sprawling super yacht drifting in the Mediterranean Sea. This is quintessentially the globe's most elite lifestyle concierge service, an organization designed to grant the ultimate wishes of billionaires. And on the surface, it's a testament to high society, providing VIP access to what isn't accessible. And for years, the horrific crimes of Jeffrey Epstein have been associated with private estates, locked mansions, and private airplanes. However, as investigators continue to untangle his sprawling web, a story has come out. Epstein's predatory reach extended far beyond his immediate properties, with catering to the ultra-rich. And a story has surfaced about the Quintessentially Yacht program, a shadowy yacht operation insulated from the prying eyes of international law on the open ocean. This is the truth about the Quintessentially Yacht program. Let's get spooky. Hey, spooky people, it's your best friend, Kenny. By now, you know that the global elite do not experience reality in the same way as you and I do. When you reach a certain amount of money in your bank account, you don't have consequences. The human constraints of everyday life are essentially non-existent. These people become numb. To feel something real, the ultra-high net worth individuals require something beyond. This was the foundational philosophy behind Quintessentially, the luxury concierge service established in London in 2000 by Ben Elliot, Simpson, and Paul Drummond. It was marketed as a lifestyle management company for the 0.001%. Quintessentially sold an illusion of boundless access, moving seamlessly from tables at impossible to book restaurants to orchestrating private dinners at Buckingham Palace. The pitch was simple. Whatever you want, wherever you are, we'll do it. But beneath the veneer of bespoke luxury was a darker operation. Quintessentially would psychoanalyze its clientele to curate extreme experiences tailored to their deepest, most disturbing desires. Among the most shocking offerings in their portfolio was a literal 3-month kidnap experience designed specifically for billionaires desperate to feel adrenaline. The logistics of simulating a hyper-realistic abduction over 90 days required a staggering apparatus of surveillance, private security, and completely ignoring local law enforcement. Co-founder Simpson was candid about this during a press conference, stating, "People are demanding that they are taken to the edge of their normality. To take a client to the edge of their normality requires a deep understanding of their vulnerabilities and their moral boundaries. And in the shadowy world of extreme wealth management, having this type of psychological profile is the ultimate leverage." Ben Elliot is the nephew of Queen Camilla and a man described as moving effortlessly across a social circle that mixed the royal family, the UK Conservative Party, and the City of London. He understood the currency of access better than anybody. Elliot used his aristocratic pedigree to cultivate a network of global power brokers, acting as the ultimate gatekeeper to the British establishment. He, with his co-founders and Italian entrepreneur Luca Del Bono, built an empire on knowing exactly what the global elite wanted in the dark. But the inherent danger of mapping the absolute extremes of billionaire desire is one that intersects with those who exploit those precise desires for control and blackmail. By curating environments where societal rules are suspended, Quintessentially aligned itself with a shadow economy of high society fixers operating outside the bounds of the law. The edge of normality, it turns out, was overlooking an abyss. And waiting at the bottom of that abyss was Jeffrey Epstein. Quintessentially transitioned from a high-end luxury concierge to a critical node in a trafficking network. This evidence is inked in Jeffrey Epstein's infamous Little Black Book, a digitized directory that served as the backbone of his blackmail enterprise. Within these pages, the names Ben Elliot and his quintessentially colleague Luca Del Bono are prominently featured. Epstein viewed them as assets. And of course, what connected everything was Ghislaine Maxwell. Maxwell was a permanent fixture of the transatlantic social elite, and she understood the value of these services that Quintessentially could provide. When Quintessentially launched its operations in the United States in 2003, Maxwell was a prominent guest at the launch party hosted at Sotheby's in New York. The relationship was beyond just galas and red carpets. Photographs place Ben Elliot at Maxwell's private residence and various other gatherings over the years. Epstein and Maxwell built their network on social laundering, using legitimate, highly respected figures to provide a veneer of respectability for their illegal operations. Maxwell's MO for getting these contacts was a deeply aggressive networking plan. Maxwell leveraged her social network to map the wealthy and the logistic infrastructure that the wealthy had. Their pilots, their captains, their isolated real estate quintessentially became the ultimate prize. As a company designed to manage pilots, captains, and private residences of the ultra wealthy, Quintessentially's database was perfect for Maxwell's intelligence gathering ambitions. It was a pre-packaged index of the world's most powerful people, complete with their psychological profiles, their travel habits, and the coordinates of what was their edge of normality. Maxwell's true ambitions required more than just a Rolodex of yacht captains and targeted billionaires, though. And to insulate an operation of this magnitude from law enforcement, she needed a financial fortress that could process extreme wealth without triggering international alarm. And in 2015, Quintessentially handed her network the keys to one of the most powerful financial pipelines on Earth. Quintessentially required deep systemic integration into the architecture of private wealth management. To have the type of access that Quintessentially promised, it required massive amounts of money, and to be able to move that money discreetly across borders. And to be able to do that requires partnerships willing to look the other way. In 2015, Quintessentially executed a partnership with Deutsche Bank to roll out a highly exclusive tier of service known as Quintessentially Platinum. The program was designed for Deutsche Bank wealth management clients, a division that caters to individuals whose net worth requires offshore accounts, shell companies, and hidden financials. Documents from the Department of Justice Epstein Files revealed the reality of this corporate partnership. The document outlines the initial rollout of the Quintessentially Platinum program, and among the very first individuals nominated for this elite program in 2015 were billionaire Wilbur Ross and Jeffrey Epstein. By January 2015, Jeffrey Epstein, he had pled guilty in Florida in 2008. Under standard banking regulations, legitimate financial institutions were required to off-board him due to the reputational, legal, and anti-money laundering compliance risks. Yet Deutsche Bank kept him on as a highly valued Tier 1 client and activated him for bespoke concierge service dedicated to fulfilling the extreme demands of the ultra-wealthy. The partnership between Deutsche Bank and Quintessentially Platinum provided an invisible pipeline for moving money under the guise of lifestyle management. In the world of forensic accounting, irregular wire transfers to private individuals or shell companies raise red flags. However, if an ultra-high net worth individual wires millions of dollars to an internationally recognized concierge service for a private asset procurement or event management, the transaction is shielded by what seems to be the operation of the bank. Quintessentially has long operated in the gray areas of financial management. Previously, it had faced accusations of assisting members with offshore tax avoidance and utilizing opaque, complex corporate structures to funnel money and avoid scrutiny. Ben Elliot was a seasoned navigator of these murky waters. Elliot's role was clear. He was the conduit through which the controversial money could buy British legitimacy. For Epstein, who was a man whose entire enterprise relied on the covert movement of money to fund an international trafficking ring, Quintessentially Platinum offered an incredible service. Hidden financials legitimized by royal connections. He could operate beyond the reach of consequence. However, it required more than just banks and corrupt aristocrats. The heat on Epstein was rising. Being on land had become increasingly hazardous. They needed a fortress that no subpoena could reach. In 2017, the luxury maritime world was stunned by a press release from Quintessentially announcing an incredible endeavor. The company declared it was in the final stages of constructing the Quintessentially One, a 721-foot super yacht marketed as the world's largest floating private membership club. To give you an idea of how big this yacht was, it was designed to be 40 meters longer than and Azam, the world's largest private yacht owned by the ruler of the United Arab Emirates. The financials of Quintessentially One were secretive. The build was estimated to cost around $311 million. To fund the initial stages of construction, co-founder Aaron Simpson announced that 5 billionaire friends had quietly paid £10 million each in return for sprawling triplex apartment suites on board. When pressed by journalists for who these core investors were, Simpson refused to name them, stating that they would remain strictly anonymous until a bottle of champagne hits the hull. The ship was designed to be an entirely autonomous floating palace. It featured 12 stunning residential triplex apartments for sale, alongside a boutique hotel on the lower decks at £2,000 a night. The yacht was supposed to have an underwater bar, a massive cigar storage rooms, a wine cellar, a spa, and a dedicated crew of 490 personnel just to cater to the guests. Simpson boasted that the yacht would follow the global elite's migration patterns to the Cannes Film Festival, the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, and the Rio Carnival, hosting exclusive parties with performers like Elton John. The maiden voyage was scheduled for the 2019-2020 season. Quintessentially bears an impossible to ignore resemblance to a project that was being shopped to the global elite by Ghislaine Maxwell. According to Media Executive, she pitched a luxurious floating country in the middle of the Pacific. The advantage of Maxwell's floating country, as she explained it, was entirely financial and legal. It would offer zero income tax and zero inheritance tax. The barrier to entry was you could only become a citizen if you had many hundreds of millions of dollars. When you look at what Maxwell called her floating country and Quintessentially One, it's clear it was the same thing. Both projects required hundreds of millions in net worth just to get access. Both promised unparalleled luxury, permanently stationed on the ocean. Both were designed as private clubs for a highly specific cross-section of the global elite. Quintessentially One was designed to be Norwegian registered, yet it was planned to be perpetually in international waters, creating a jurisdictional nightmare for any law enforcement agency attempting to audit its residents, monitor its passengers, or tax it. A super yacht of this magnitude, populated by anonymous billionaires and crewed by nearly 500 people, would be a dark sanctuary. The Quintessentially One was the physical manifestation of an offshore tax haven, a literal floating shell company. It provided the ultimate mechanism for hiding money, tax evasion. Given the deep integration of the Epstein network into Quintessentially's operations, a highly secure, heavily guarded location where the normal laws of human conduct and consent no longer apply. The vessel was supposed to hit water by 2019, but as the summer that year approached, the creators of this floating dark site weren't preparing for a maiden voyage. They were planning to vanish without a trace. The logistics of building a massive super yacht require a massive shipyard. You can't secretly build the largest yacht on Earth. Yet, despite the PR campaign, no major European shipyard ever announced that they were cutting steel for the Quintessentially One. It was a ghost, existing in high-resolution digital rendering and pitches to anonymous billionaires. Despite the lack of physical construction, Aaron Simpson maintained the illusion to the very edge of reality. In a June 2019 YouTube interview, Simpson confirmed the plans for the yacht were still actively ongoing and that the project was moving forward. But the timeline of the summer 2019 was about to collide with the Epstein network, setting off a chain reaction of digital destruction and corporate panic. On July 6, 2019, Jeffrey Epstein was arrested in New Jersey by federal authorities. On August 10, 2019, he was found dead in his cell at the Metropolitan Correctional Center in Manhattan. Almost immediately, Ghislaine Maxwell vanished, dropping off the grid and initiating a high-stakes international manhunt that would last for nearly a year. At that same time, the digital footprint of Quintessentially One was completely erased. Data collection by the Internet Archive's Wayback Machine for QuintessentiallyOne.com came to a dead halt. The process of scrubbing a site from global web archives requires a lot of work. There are specific methods to block the Wayback Machine crawler. The first is the implementation of restricted robots text instructions on the host server, coded to command archiving bots to drop their historical caches and cease all future indexing. The second involves digital millennial copyright takedown requests directly to the Internet Archive, legally forcing the administrators to manually delete historical snapshots got to the domain. The fact that this happened is too much of a coincidence to be dismissed as standard corporate restructuring. In August 2019, Epstein dies. In September 2019, Maxwell goes into hiding. And by the end of the year, the Quintessentially One website is digitally incinerating, leaving no trace of the pitch, the anonymous billionaires who paid 10 million pounds each, or the schematics of triplex apartments that Maxwell may have envisioned as her untethered Pacific sanctuary. While the digital footprint vanished, the physical corporate structure of Quintessentially was collapsing inward. Ben Elliot was busy leveraging his role as a co-chair of the Conservative Party in the UK to raise massive funds for Boris Johnson's December 2019 election campaign. But his own company was hemorrhaging money and facing intense revolt. Late in 2019, as the Epstein scandal reached a global high point, Quintessentially faced allegations of severe financial mismanagement and was accused of fostering a toxic, macho Mad Men-style working culture. An independent audit report had already flagged serious structural problems, knowing that the company's architecture was opaque and complex and the directors were extracting substantial management fees despite the company recording consecutive financial losses. The toxic culture would break containment, spilling into the legal system. 2 senior female executives filed lawsuits against the company, specifically targeting the management style and conduct of the 3 co-founders, Ben Elliot, Aaron Simpson, and Paul Drummond. The court petition laid bare a hostile environment cultivated by Elliot, who reportedly once described himself in the office as a relentless bossy fucker. To prevent the granular details of the culture and the financials from reaching open court and the press, Quintessentially paid millions of pounds in late 2019 to silently settle the lawsuit. The strategy of the Quintessentially directors was clear. Compartmentalize the damage, settle quickly with the female executives, scrub the extreme projects from the internet, and retreat beyond the shield of British political and royal influence. They paid millions to bury the truth in London, believing that they had successfully severed the limb. They were wrong. The true reckoning was waiting in the federal court dockets in California. By late 2025 and early 2026, the firewall of British high society had completely collapsed. The operational secrets of Quintessentially, which were originally buried under NDAs and outer court settlements and erased server data, were dragged into the unforgiving light of the United States federal court system. A cascade of civil lawsuits struck the company, its founders, and its financial partners, revealing an enterprise that functioned less as a luxury concierge service and more as a highly organized crime syndicate. The litigation in the U.S. District Court for Central District of California revealed a multi-front assault on the company's founders and its bizarre corporate structure. On October 16, 2025, plaintiff Jane Doe filed a lawsuit directly against Quintessentially co-founder Aaron Simpson and Quintessentially Limited for assault, libel, and slander. The docket shows a brutal legal battle. Realizing the existential threat of discovery in the American court system, Quintessentially deployed a heavy-hitting defense team. Their strategy was the classic maneuver to shield foreign nationals, filing a motion to dismiss the case based on improper service and lack of personal jurisdiction. By early 2026, the court battles over amended complaints, defective proofs of service, and jurisdictional technicalities were raging fiercely in Judge Wesley Shue's courtroom. On the exact same day, in October 2025, a massive employment discrimination and labor lawsuit was filed by plaintiff Michael Bui against Ben Elliot, Aaron Simpson, Paul Drummond, and the crazy labyrinth of quintessential shell companies. The defendant list is seriously over an entire page and is crazy. Why would a company that simply books dinner reservations and private flights require over 20 separate limited liability entities, holding companies, and global partnerships? By naming the entire corporate structure, the plaintiff's counsel pierced the opaque structure that the accountants and auditors had warned about years prior. This structure was an astonishing example of offshore tax avoidance and asset shielding. If one entity is sued or compromised, the money had already been shifted across borders to an entirely different LLC. The assault and labor suits were devastating to the company, exposing the toxic reality of the founders and dismantling the corporate shields piece by piece. But they were merely the beginning. In May 2026, a plaintiff unsealed a federal complaint that finally said the quiet part out loud and aimed directly at the financial heart of the enterprise. The shockwave that threatened to obliterate the remnants of the Quintessentially empire arrived on May 28, 2026. A federal lawsuit entitled Doe versus Barclays Bank PLC was filed in the Central District of California. This complaint explicitly alleged the active existence and facilitation of an trafficking enterprise. And the court filings for this case are radioactive. The plaintiff alleges that Barclays Barclays Bank PLC and its subsidiary Barclays Capital Financial Limited undertook specific actions for the direct financial benefit of members of this trafficking ring. The legal filings explicitly named Ben Elliot, Aaron Sampson, Paul Drummond, Ira Michael Burns, and Anthony Leopold Brooke. The 2026 litigation shifts the entire paradigm of the investigation from high society scandal to federal racketeering and trafficking. Under federal law, it is a severe federal crime to conduct the activities of a trafficking enterprise in a way that affects interstate or foreign commerce, or involves travel in interstate or foreign commerce. And civil actions under these statutes allow victims to pursue financial institutions that provided the banking for these traffickers. When a plaintiff brings a civil action against a major financial institution like Barclays for its role in a trafficking enterprise, the implication is that the bank facilitated the architecture, ignored blatant red flags, and provided the money pipeline that allowed the enterprise to operate. And Barclays is no stranger to massive institutional compliance failure. A bank with a history of systemic fraud is the ideal partner for a shadow enterprise requiring questionable capital flow. If Aaron Simpson and the quintessentially directors were managing the logistical, travel, and lifestyle requirements of the global elite, taking them to the edge of normality, and Barclays was managing the capital flow to fund these untraceable endeavors, it shows that this is an incredible level of organized exploitation. The real product that Quintessentially was selling was total legal impunity. When you look at the facts, the deep psychological profiling of billionaires, the overlaps in Jeffrey Epstein's Black Book, the Deutsche Bank Platinum Pipeline, the $300 million super yacht, the sudden 2019 digital erasure, and the 2026 federal trafficking lawsuits, a reality emerges that shows the level of corporate illegality. Quintessentially was an intersection of unlimited money and moral decay. They sold the explicit promise of taking men to the extremes of human experiences, a service that dovetailed with the blackmail and trafficking operations managed by Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. By utilizing the British aristocracy, Ghislaine Maxwell's vision of a floating country with no inheritance tax, no income, and an insurmountable financial barrier to entry was the conclusion for a network that realized land-based jurisdictions were becoming hazardous to their freedoms for the things that they wanted to do. The 5 anonymous billionaires who wired $10 million each to Aaron Simpson were donating money to a sovereign dark side. It was designed to be a fortress of illegality, completely detached from the rule of law, operating in international waters where age of consent laws, financial reporting requirements, and human rights statutes have no effect. And the timeline of the yacht's disappearance proves that it was an illegal enterprise. When Epstein died in his Manhattan cell and Maxwell went on the run in the late of summer of 2019, the architects of the network were compromised. The largest super yacht ever made cannot survive all of its money going away and the scrutiny of international investigators. The aggressive scrubbing of quintessentially1.com from the internet was the digital equivalent of burning documents. It was an emotional protocol executed by a company that realized that its ambition was a massive flashing red light for federal prosecutors. And the subsequent unraveling of the company's internal culture was just the first tremor of its collapse. The 2025 and 2026 lawsuits represent the earthquake. The fact that a sitting U.S. federal judge is currently presiding over allegations mapping a trafficking enterprise directly to the quintessentially directors and their banking partners at Barclays validates the darkest theories regarding Quintessentially's true function. Ben Elliot has declined to comment, hiding behind the remnants of his political influence. Aaron Simpson is fighting a desperate multi-front war against all of these lawsuits while navigating the catastrophic fallout of the trafficking enterprise allegation. And the network of shell companies is currently being dissected in open court, exposing the opaque mechanisms used to move money, move people, and shield the elite. The yacht was never supposed to sail the oceans. It was designed to navigate the darkest channels of human exploitation. The Quintessentially One was a monument to the absolute hubris of the ultra wealthy. A belief that with enough money, enough royal connections, and the right banking partners, you could simply construct a reality where consequences cease to exist. And today, as the subpoenas fly and the federal dockets fill with the names of the untouchable elite, the artificial reality is finally taking on water. Please subscribe to this channel, The Spooky Lawyer. Please like and share this video. If you'd like to support the channel, you could become a member of this channel. I appreciate you considering that. You can also support me by continuing to watch my videos, liking, sharing, and hitting the hype button on my video. And I do appreciate you watching my videos. And please stay spooky.